Boomer doesn't understand tech, by user _Georgia_O'Keefe. This happened about 10 years ago. There was a Karen that had been with the company for nearly 15 years. Her title was project manager, but she was really more of an office admin and various internal projects would get pushed to her. These were things to help improve how the office worked, but nothing critical. One of these projects was actually deemed to be important and it was reassigned to me. She hated this and stonewalled me all the time. It caused the project to be delayed, and I was getting crap from some of the executives because of this. When I commented that it was difficult to get information from Karen, she became super sweet and said she was bending over backwards to help me, I didn't understand the project, etc. I powered through anyway. But, then there was a round of layoffs and she was one of them. Due to her time with the company, she received a 3-month severance and extended benefits. It was weird, but the company essentially cut monthly severance checks instead of paying them out all at once. But, she also had to sign an NDA and non-disparagement agreement on the exit, as well as confirm that she had handed over all company materials and files. I went to go grab some files related to the project and everything was gone. Karen had deleted everything. This was before using things like Teams, Google Drive, etc. Everything was on a shared network drive, so it wasn't super easy to get the backup. But Boomer Karen was the type that used her work email for all her personal accounts, including LinkedIn. It was also company policy that the emails of departed employees would be forwarded to their department heads for a few months. Using this knowledge, I went to LinkedIn and sent a message. Hi Karen, I heard about your departure. I hope you can use the time to take the vacation you talked about. I went to grab some of the files but noticed they were missing. Do you have backups you could share? When she responded, it also went to her old email, and thus to the department head. Don't pretend to be nice. I wouldn't be surprised if you helped me get fired. Good luck finding any of those files. I deleted everything. Screw you. Well, when that got forwarded to HR that she had put in writing that she had deleted everything, it was determined that this violated the severance agreement. All severance checks were immediately stopped. Oh, so sorry Boomer. I reported my old workplace to the tax office because they fired me, by user SmileNorth. Context: I was the only white person, everyone else was Punjabi/Pakistani. I am also 19F and am completely self-reliant on putting myself through university/college and don't get any help from my family. Also 80 equals Australian Taxation Office. So I worked for a local pizza place for 10 months before the owner sold the business and changed ownership. It was only a small place, you only needed 4 staff for a busy night and I was the pizza chef. During the transition phase I trained the new owners on everything, making and packing pizza, using the order system, all of the health and safety rules, customer service skills. During this time we got along really well, even on some late nights they would drop me home if it was raining and we would talk about family/friends/hobbies etc. Unfortunately on the first week they took over I got sick from tonsillitis and couldn't work, but when I came back their attitude towards me changed completely. They were rude, gave me less shifts and dismissed me completely when I tried to help and refused to give me more responsibilities when beforehand they told me that when they took over I'd be learning how to make pastas and not just pizzas. They were also not listening to me when I told them they weren't following the OHS, occupational health and safety, rules, working without a hairnet, not washing hands, etc. During this time I saw one of my co-workers without a hairnet on, she has butt-length hair and it was down in a braid. I told her in front of the owner that she needed to wear a hairnet as it's a breach of our OHS rules and that if someone gets a hair in their food or gets sick then the company will be liable and we could get in trouble. She told me no and the owner agreed with her. 10 minutes later I found a ball of her hair sitting right where I make pizza. I grabbed it and took it to her and told her where I found it and that she has to put a hairnet on. She put a hairnet on top of her head but left her braid out. The next week I was talking to one of my co-workers and he wanted the next day off and I wanted to work, so we asked if we could switch as it would have been a Tuesday, normally slowest days of the week, and that it would be a good opportunity for me to get training in making pastas while my co-worker could relax. The owner said no and that they wanted the other guy to work and not me. A month or so later I had a 2-week holiday to the US that they knew about and approved of, and when I came back I asked about my shifts and they told me they don't need me anymore. When I asked why they couldn't give me a proper reason, some reasons they gave me were that I was rude and racist to co-workers, that I refused to work in the kitchen, I messed up paperwork and that they were overstaffed. All of which is false. I'm literally a chef and I texted my now ex-co-workers asking if I was rude or racist to them. They said I'm not and the only paperwork was my employee form which I didn't mess up. They then hung up on me and then sent me abusive texts saying that I'm racist to my co-workers. Again I asked them this and they said I'm not, and when I responded they told me they would get a lawyer involved if I contacted them again. Just to reiterate, under the old ownership who I worked for 9 ish months there were never any problems between myself, the owner and any of my co-workers. Anyway, so here is where my petty revenge comes in. While I worked there I saw them do a lot of cash-in-hand payments to staff along with some other sketchy stuff with money. It's been 3 months and I don't have my super/retirement fund payment. So I called the ATO, Australian tax office, and told them about everything, about all of the cash-in-hand payments, about the absence of my super payment, not paying staff fairly, etc. The person on the phone told me that my information was more than enough and that they would be starting an investigation which will most likely turn into the owners getting audited. So go ahead and fire me for no reason. I'll report you. BTW, I now have an amazing job and absolutely love my co-workers. I've been there for a while now and I've never had any complaints. This workplace is also pretty diverse. Edit, some spelling errors and spacing of paragraphs. Sorry, it's one of my first times posting. Don't destroy my sandcastle and you won't break your toe. It's that simple. By user pretentious_hat. I'm at a proper beach for the first time in decades and this story just came up in conversation. I totally forgot about it until today and thrilled there's a sub to share it with. I grew up in California but not close enough to beach to go there often, so it was a major treat for my brother and me. One summer when I was about 8, which would have made my brother about 6 or 7, we were having a blast building sandcastles with our little plastic pails and shovels. We'd found a spot with just the right amount of moisture in the sand for maximum structural integrity. It had towers and a moat and everything. We were about to call our mom over to look at it when this bigger kid, my age or a bit older, did a running jump into the middle of the castle. And he didn't stop there. He kept jumping around and kicking until it was totally leveled, laughing the whole time. I knew when it was pointless to object, so I sat there silently while my little brother cried until the kid finished his destruction and ran off. I hugged my brother and said we'd build another one. He said, tearfully, but he'll just kick it down again. I looked around for a moment and saw a large, flat rock jutting up through the sand, about a foot high in my memory, and seemingly sunk very deep. I told him not to worry and immediately got to work coating the rock in a layer of wet sand. I don't know if my brother understood, but we started rebuilding our masterpiece. We didn't get very far before we saw Big Kid coming and moved out of his way. He did an elaborate spin kick right into the rock and collapsed instantly with a scream, grabbing his foot. I don't remember him saying anything to us but just dragged himself up and limped away crying. Little brother and I repaired the damage to our castle and continued building happily. My memory is hazy after this, but I feel like I saw a woman, who I assumed was Big Kid's mother, arguing with my mom. Somehow I knew I wouldn't be in trouble, so I didn't worry about it and she never even brought it up with us. I got my sense of poetic retribution from her. EDA, thinking about it now, this basically my only style of revenge. It only occurs at the exact moment someone is being an asshole. I did something similar to my manager who kept eating my prep back when I worked at a restaurant. I kept asking him not to as I carefully portioned my prep and it took time to replace, but he'd just laugh and keep doing it. Eventually, I started hiding my real prep and filling my usual container with leftover prep I dug out of the compost after he'd scraped it off customer plates. Everyone was happy. But I was happier. Edit number 2, I was the only woman in the kitchen and he was a boomer. Could I make it any more obvious? Which may be why he never took me seriously any of the 100x I told him to stop. I've switched careers but still drop by there occasionally and plan to tell him one day, when the time feels right. Knowing him, he'll probably say something about how funny it was when I used to nag him about stealing my mice. I'm patient. I can wait. Edit number 3, yes, I promise that when that day comes, I will make an update here. Petty revenge on driver tailgating me, by user Isiriana. Not sure if this is quite the sub for this. Do direct me elsewhere if there's a more fitting sub. I worked nights for over a year. The route home took me on a rural, one-lane highway. No street lights, lots of curves, lots of trees, lots of deer. The speed limit on this stretch is 55 miles per hour. Almost everyone goes 65, but I had noticed cops cracking down on people speeding on that road, so I stopped pushing the speed limit so much. I was on my way home, tired after a 12-hour overnight shift. It was pitch black out, no stars or moon because of cloud cover. I mean, it was dark. But there was no one else on the roads at that time. Still, I didn't want to deal with deer or drive too fast on the winding roads while tired, so I kept my speed pretty close to the speed limit. A car pulls up behind me. Rides my tail. Flashing his lights, making like he wants to pass. Now, there's no shoulder, so I can't just pull over and let him go. Also, there's no one else out on the roads at this hour and hasn't been for the whole drive, he could easily pass me. So I slow down. He keeps on my tail, despite being on a straightaway where he could easily pass me. I set my cruise control at exactly 55 miles per hour and decide to ignore him, because I'm petty like that. I was going 58, almost 60 on the straightaways, but not anymore. You gonna be an ass, despite having ample opportunity to pass, that's on you, dog. As soon as we get to a no passing zone, as you do, he apparently decides he's had enough and floors it, zipping around me. Finally. Moments later, I see flashing lights in my rear view. A police car pulls around me and pulls over the impatient driver. Boy am I glad I kept it at the speed limit. Dr. guy waits till we get to a no passing zone to pass me and gets immediately pulled over. Call the cops, he says, by user Patrickminster. There's a small parking lot next to my wife's salon. Only 3 spots at one end. These 3 spots are right up front and highly fought over because of the busy check cashing place next door. I pull into one of the 3 and get my kids, and just as I'm putting my rig in reverse, a guy pulls in with his little pickup truck and double parks right behind me. I pop out and give him a "Hey dude, WTF?" And he tells me to call the cops as he walks into the check cashing place. My rig has a pretty good turn radius, so I was able to back out after a couple tries. As I pull along next to his truck, I grab the bag of Doritos of the seat next to me and crunch it up real good and proceed to fling the tiny chips all over his truck. Bed, cab, and hood, tiny crumbs were everywhere. He chooses this moment to pop out of the check cashing place and yells, "Hey, I saw that." I leaned back out the window as I drove off and told him call the cops just as the first of the seagulls descended onto his truck. Sure, not the best way to handle it. But this is r/petty revenge.